Asked and answered, the Cougar Forzas are here. Good afternoon and welcome to Turbo Tortoise Tech. If you're new here, I'm Reese of the 4-piece variety or Triple XL. And I finally have the data for the Forza 50 and the Forza 85. And it's gone very well, to tell you the truth. Cougars really, with their new fan and their new this and their new that, they are really coming back to market in the way we hoped they would have remained. Because they started off very strong and they came in the same sort of segment as like a Deep Cooler or Cooler Master. Very good bang for buck sort of products, good quality, you know, really strong mid-range, pretty good high-end stuff as well, like with the Conquer. And on the surface of things, it was going well, but then they had a little bit of a dip, but now they're back. And it is so good to have them back in market. So we've got the 50 and the 85. The 50 still being on the test bench, the 85 being the thicker of the two boys. There's a lot of surface area over here, and it does work, which is the good news. But before we get into the performance or anything like that, let's first go through what's in the box. Well, obviously you get the cooler, you get a myriad of fittings, you get the all-new fan, which has rubberizing on all of the corners on both sides, and this one features a little daisy chain as well, so you can connect two into one without having to go and get then a splitting cable. Very, very nice. You also get, like in the fittings and stuff, you get like this long screwdriver with the 85, which you will need in order to fasten the back. But in there, I really like that they provided that and didn't expect you to have one yourself, because not a lot of users, especially like more entry-level guys and newer people to the PC market, aren't going to have screwdrivers and stuff this long. So the fact they include like a pretty decent one in the package was good. The included thermal paste was pretty good. I did use it in the tests, and the rest of the fittings were of a good quality. Unpacking and looking at the physical stuff, there was only one thing that I didn't really like, were these clips. I do find that they tend to bend, albeit these are very beefy. Compared to most of the ones that I get, they're quite easy to bend. This has enough flexibility in it that it won't just bend when you try and push it around, but it's also not going to just bend like at random and warp. So it should have a pretty decent lifetime for these. And they do give you a dual set for both, so you can put push-pull. That's the exact idea that they have here, is if you want to reduce your fan curves, then you can put push-pull so that there's just more airflow. It's easier to get more airflow through a thing if there's two fans working on it. I mean, that's just logical. Two is better than one in this case, and it is in pretty much all of the cases. So mounting and installation wasn't as good as I was hoping, especially with the LJ1700. It uses these little silver lock-in connectors over here into this base plate, and then the way that it goes, and then obviously it sits through the back of the motherboard. The fittings and the way it finishes is very good. It was just these pieces, to get them to line up wasn't the easiest ever, and I work with this sort of stuff every day, bearing in mind, and then getting it through the back of the motherboard, it didn't line up like as nicely as I wanted it to. Some of them were noticeably like half a mil short across, especially like that. There was one set that was like just out. So when I put it through the motherboard, it was a bit of a wangle to get in there and scraping the edges and stuff, which is never a good feeling. Nothing's going to happen. There's nothing there to break. So I was obviously still comfortable to put it in. But as a user, you might just be a little bit apprehensive. Don't worry about it. It will be fine. It's just they do need to improve the spacing on this just ever so slightly. But now we get to the setups themselves. So the Cougar 85 has a special way to install it. You see the hole that's over there on the top? That's where you've got to lead down the screwdriver to reach the screw at the back. And then they actually want you to fasten them down simultaneously, which is a good guideline to do. But if you just alternate between the two, you do 4 turns on top, 4 turns on bottom, 4 turns on top, 4 turns on bottom, it's going to go down like that and sit then pretty flat. So I just fastened it like that, and it was absolutely perfect. And funnily enough, I only really found the screwdriver after I'd already done it, because I've got a ratchet screwdriver that's quite long and would fit through here. I luckily have that sort of equipment. So installation was, beyond that, it was actually pretty easy. The component quality is really good, nice standoffs, like I said, everything was good from that perspective. The fan mount as well is super easy. It's just to pull the two clips back and then it's on the mount. The 50 as well is much easier because it has open-ended on both sides, so you just install like 1, 2 and then put the fan on, and I much prefer this mounting style, to have the bracket down and then just have one on either side like that. It is honestly the better way to do it. I first experienced it with a deep core AK400, so it's nice to see Cougar following suit. I think all the brands should be basically doing their mounting in that sort of style, because for a user, especially if you have to do like new thermal paste, it's really easy to access and get into. Reapplying thermal paste should be a 15-minute job at maximum, which is nice. It makes the product livable. And the look and feel, I think we should discuss that as well. I do like the way that it's finished on top. For both of them, they have the same kind of brushed aluminium finish with a nice Cougar down the middle. Heat pipe caps as well, nicely done there. The fins as well, they have like a bit of an interesting design to increase their surface area by the looks of things. And there's a recess, like a noticeable recess in here for the fan, so that the fan then sits in between those two areas perfectly like that. So nicely done and finished and machined. The base plate, though, is something that's a little bit interesting because it actually differs between the two. This has a contact plate that then attaches the heat pipes, and the other one has direct, the Forza 50 has direct heat pipes. So the result of that is the Forza 50 can wick the heat off more quickly, but it's got less surface area. This has way more surface area, but it's slightly slower on the heat transfer. So now we're going to see how that affects performance. So if we compare the two against each other, the 85 only hits about 50 to 60% of max fan curve, whereas the 50 you're seeing 100% fan curve, and it was extremely loud, as you'll see from the things on your screen. To keep a 225 watt CPU cool underneath a 200 watt cooler is not exactly fair, but we ran it anyway, and it did well. It honestly did well. The thermal throttling was quite minimal. If we compare that versus the H100, it wasn't too far behind. You're looking at like 140 sort of megahertz per core that you're going to be bleeding there in speed, and obviously it's going to get a worse result on Cinebench. The Forza 85, however, also only needed to go like 50-60% of its fan curve like the H100 did, and then it actually gave better performance by a couple hundred megahertz. So this, honestly, the 85 to keep up with the H100 with a smart, I've had them both on a smart fan curve. You can see the averages and stuff were a little bit better and more in line with each other as well. So the 85 is actually a genuine replacement for a 240mm radiator. If you don't want to have water cooling, you don't have to. You could honestly put one of these in, and especially if you put on push-pull and you put the extra fan on the back, then your fan curves are going to be extremely low, because the heat pipe transfer, while it's not direct contact, it's still doing its job very well. You can see that with the Cinebench score as well, where the Forza 85 was actually the best. The 50 is very good, and honestly on like 120 to say 180 watt TDP chips, it's even going to give you some pretty good overclocking headroom. It will do 200 watts just loudly. Unfortunately, it will need the entire fan curve, so push-pull might be even better on that as far as audio profiles and fan curves go, but the towers and the heat pipes are working. And that's kind of the most important factor here, because this is the longevity piece. The beauty of this is that there's no moving parts. It's just a solid block of metal. So if you don't drop it or throw it around or bash it, you will have this then for the rest of your life, which is something that I do like. So for longevity's sake, I mean, if you think of a water cooler, it's got a pump. So eventually that pump is going to kick the bucket. And then what? You got to go and spend another 2,000 odd rand to get a whole nother cooler. Whereas this, you're just replacing a fan. You spend $300-400 and you get a really good fan like one of these even, and you slap it on and you carry on going. That's always the inherent advantage with the air coolers. So Cougar's new line is very good. I think the pricing is a little bit steep. I think 1314 for this would be good and put it more in line with some of the other competitors in the market. And this, it's very difficult to suggest it over an AK400 when the AK400 is nearly like half price compared. So I like them and they are very good. So if you like the aesthetic and you want a Cougar system, then you don't have to go and get another brand, which is the nice part. So if you really want or like the aesthetic, then you can keep it all Cougar, which is kind of nice. Anyway, that's all I have for you on the Cougar Forza 50 and 85. If there are any other reviews that you guys would like to see, we will get the product and I will eventually make your video. I promise. I want to help you, my friend. That's what I'm doing. So please do hit us up in the comments down below. If you have enjoyed this review, then please hit us up with a like and subscribe. And I will see you on the flip side.